Moonshine Jesus, nobody in the sky. Moonshine Jesus, baby, don't lie. Moonshine Jesus, a surprise and delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Hello and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. David, how you doing, sir? It's good to see you.
I am doing excellent. It is a beautiful overcast Friday morning here in Western North Carolina.
Yes.
We got some much needed rain, and but it's kind of fitting given some of the stuff that's been going on in the news that there was some rain. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing pretty well, man. I've got a nice cup of coffee here. So the rain that you had has just made it here. So
You're welcome.
yes,
You're welcome.
we appreciate it. And it's a nice kind of overcast morning for enjoying a warm cup of coffee. You having anything to drink this morning, man?
No, I've actually already finished my coffee like a couple hours ago as I was trying to scramble my children out the door. My coffee came, so I'm completely and fully caffeinated, and I'm ready to go.
Nice, very nice, very nice. Well, we should mention, David, that we're going to be at Wild Goose on the podcast stage this year, and that we hope folks are going to come. We are working on some giveaways for the first, maybe 50 folks who show up at the time that we're allotted. It should be a lot of fun.
Wild Goose is always fun. It's always a good time. I love that they're having a podcast stage so that, you get lots of different podcasts. Because lots of times it's hard to know who's out there podcasting because there's so many. So it's a nice opportunity to get to be on stage with other podcasters and share that space. And Wild Goose is fun. So if you guys are in the area, come. If you're not in the area, drop down and come. I've got a spare bedroom.
Wait a minute. I thought I was using that bedroom.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Never mind. I don't have a spare bedroom.
But yeah, it should be a great time. Listen, you did mention that it's overcast today and how that's sort of fitting. It
is sort of fitting. Everybody is well aware now. TMZ broke the news yesterday. I think it was TMZ that Prince died at his home at the age of 57, which is really, really young.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's overwhelmed my social media feeds. I don't know, but it's really overwhelmed the news. Like it was all over everything.
Yeah, I saw a meme that said Prince gave us one last gift, and that was that we had a whole day without Donald Trump in the news.
which is interestingly enough kind of no, he was such an iconic artist, and did so much creative stuff. It's been interesting to see how many people have such a strong affinity for him, and how much his death seems to have affected so many people, almost more than some of the other deaths that we've had this year. It seems like this has caused a really massive outpouring of grief and sadness.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of sadness through, Waylon Jennings passing, Glenn Frey passing, David Bowie.
Merle Haggard.
I mean, not Waylon Jennings, Merle Haggard. We've seen some sadness, but not maybe to this level. And maybe we're it's not biased. Maybe we're getting a false impression, though, because we're on social media so much, and that tends to be people within a certain age group.
Sure.
And Prince was defining for folks in that age group because we were either in high school or college or somewhere close to those when he was at his peak, and when Purple Rain in 1999 were out, he was at his peak at that point. So I kind of feel like that's part of it. But then again, it is like it hit me hard, man. I mean, it hit me really hard.
Well, I think it's interesting because we're seeing a lot of famous people, a lot of celebrities beginning to die, and I think part of that is just the fact that you're in the baby boomer phase. You're in the baby boomer era where you've got a large group of people who are going to be getting older and some who are going to be dying. And so I think we're going to see more and more of these kind of celebrity passings, these celebrity deaths, and the way we deal with our grief, because there seems to be kind of a public ritual that's beginning to develop around some of these deaths. People change their Facebook profiles, they create memes, and they create quotes. And
you're talking about me, aren't you?
No, I mean, like,
that's exactly what I did. That's
all over.
exactly. I'll admit it. I did it yesterday. I created memes, and I put up one of his quotes as my profile.
But it's part of the way that I think we're grieving now as modern people who have integrated social media into our daily lives. I think a
Right.
lot of people use that to express and vocalize their grief, their sadness, and their emotions.
Sure.
It's interesting that
It's almost the same. Like when you drive down the highway and you see, crosses on the side of the road with
right.
wreaths. It's almost like the digital version of that now.
Absolutely, it's kind of this marker in the ground about this happened and it affected me. I mean, and we've seen grief message boards for people who are not famous or whatever, but it becomes this kind of self perpetuating, and it picks up momentum and steam, and soon, like everybody's Facebook profile has something to do with Prince in it. And I think it's interesting to see that many people sharing that much in common about an artist who has seen his fair share of controversy in his life.
Sure. No, absolutely. But I mean, so one of the things that makes me curious about this, not just him, but about some others that we mentioned that have already passed this year, what do you think it is that causes us to sometimes grieve more deeply for folks we didn't know like them, when there could be, let's say you're a churchgoer and there was a person that you've known for 5, 10 years, but you didn't know them well, but you'd say hey to them. And when
You've
pass,
actually shaken their hands.
Right. And when they pass, you don't grieve in that deep of a way. What do you think it is about the human condition that causes that result?
I mean, that's an interesting question, because Mark, you and I started this podcast, and our first episode was a conversation about the death of Robin Williams.
Correct.
And how deeply that affected us.
Yeah.
And so I think it reveals how much we invest in celebrities and celebrity culture and our entertainers, and our artists. In a way, if you look at it not as celebrities, but as mourning the passing of artists, for me that reframes it a little bit, because to have a culture that celebrates its artists in this way, and mourns the passing of their artists, I think may actually be a good way to think about this. That these are people who created art that changed society, that changed ourselves, that touched us at our deepest emotional levels, that tapped into something. But at the same time, we didn't have a relationship with them.
No, we didn't. But here's where I'm glad you went that way, because at first you were saying, that it's a commentary on how much importance we put in our celebrities. And I started going, I don't know. But then you went to the place where I was going to go. It's just that they are artists, and good art impacts you deeply and emotionally in a way that shaking a person's hand doesn't do it. Mm-hmm. And so there is something very real and genuine and authentic about grieving artists who touched us deeply, because in some ways, good art shapes your life.
Yeah. And I think it taps into that creative spirit that I think is in each of us, that we share with God in the divine image, is this call to create and to participate creatively in the world. And for someone like Prince, who's arguably one of the greatest guitarists of all time, I think
I'd put him in the top 20 easy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's right to mourn his passing, because we're mourning someone whose art and someone who stayed true to who they were and their identity. That kind of authenticity in our culture was rare, and that kind of authenticity and art called people to, I think, maybe to be more fully human, more fully themselves. And so I think there's a deeply spiritual call when we allow our artists to touch ourselves. I mean, we both probably have our favorite artists that we go to when we're sad or when we're happy, and we have songs or movies that are markers, much the way these memes have become these markers for significant moments and experiences of our lives.
And, I'll have to say also, just because Prince would be one of my kind of all-time favorite artists. I'll also say that there's something really positive about it being a person like Prince that our society is mourning, because his abilities, most people didn't understand how talented he was. Most of his albums, he played every single instrument He wrote all of the lyrics, and then he wrote songs for the Bangles, for Cyndi Lauper, for Alicia Keys, for Stevie Nicks, Shaka Khan. I mean, most people don't realize that he wrote for all of these folks.
He's sharing his art and his talent with more than just himself and his fans. It was had this collaborative spirit.
Yeah, exactly. And there is something right about collectively mourning the loss of such a great artist.
Well, and that collaborative spirit really does carry over to how he conducted himself at, Paisley Park, his mansion. Like he would invite people to have dance parties at his house, and entrance was $10. It's not a lot at all. And so here's this huge internationally famous celebrity who's opening up his home for this shared experience and celebration. And I don't know, that's an interesting reflection, not on celebrity culture, but on a true artist who wants to share that kind of joy and community with people, because he changed Minneapolis in a lot of ways.
Sure he did. Of course he did. And, it's interesting because he actually was sort of an introvert.
Huh.
And so I sort of, there's this great story of Jimmy Fallon thought Prince was amazing. And I think he's off air this week, so it's too bad. I'd love to see what kind of tribute they'd end up doing. But he tells the story of playing ping pong. Prince was an amazing ping pong player, turns out. and he tells the story of being at some club and somebody walking up to him and going, Prince is here and he'd like to play you some ping pong. And Jimmy's like, what? Seriously? Okay. And he says basically, long story short, Prince slips in, demolishes him in ping pong. and Jimmy like turns to say something to a friend and he turns back, Prince is gone.
Whoa.
Just like psh, thin air. Like, he didn't even hang out to talk. He was just kind of an introvert, but wanted to play. And I love little personal stories like that. But it also, like, one of the things that I appreciate about Prince was that he was an introvert, but he still managed to figure out how to collaborate and how to share his talents and his gifts with everyone and still be honest about who he was. And I love an artist that can do that, and because it teaches those of us that are introverts that maybe are shy about sharing our gifts that I'm sorry, I'm just kind of my head just is getting all like tied up in thinking through who he was and how much it meant. And I mean, I guess I just had a little kind of brief moment of going, dang, yeah, he was it's too bad I couldn't have appreciated it even more while he was around. It's only been in reflecting on him that I'm starting to recognize some of these things.
Thinking about him as an artist and as somebody who we're mourning as an artist, and thinking about a lot of artists from centuries ago who exist in either poverty or exist in relative obscurity until someone discovers something. It says something that an artist as unique as Prince is able to be celebrated by so many different people. And so one of the things we should probably talk about is the fact that he was very intentional about subverting gender binaries with his art. I mean, even with the symbol that he changed his name to in that fight with Warner Brothers,
formerly known as Prince.
Yeah, and so he was very intentional in his dress and his style and his lyrics about not conforming to these gender binaries. And that has a lot to do with what's going on in our world right now. And so maybe we should drop some music, take a little break, and then come back and talk about that.
Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Won't you shine?
Hello and welcome back to round 2 of the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're talking about Prince today, who passed away just a day before we're recording. And in the last segment, Mark, we kind of ended up in this place where we were talking about Prince as someone who intentionally subverted gender binaries. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm not as familiar with his music as you are, because in the religious culture and environment that I grew up in, Prince was kind of a taboo artist and someone who we were more apt to mock than to appreciate at that time, particularly because he subverted those gender binaries. And so for me, I've been a late comer to his work, because I've also been a latecomer in a lot of ways to this idea that gender binaries are not a thing.
Right,
And that
right.
those are things that Prince really led the way in a public way, kind of subverting that. I can't think of an artist except for maybe besides David Bowie who did that in a public way as clearly. And it's fascinating that both of these people have passed, who died
Yeah.
in this short time period. I'm imagining like the amazing concert that's going on wherever they have ended up,
Right.
with likely with God and Jesus, however you conceive of heaven. Man, there's a great concert going on. And I know that's bad theology of the afterlife. It's more of a joke, but
Right.
so I kind of want to talk about how influential he was in that, how empowering he was in that, and also this is something we're suddenly dealing with again today, right?
Sure, and I think the way he dealt with it, we probably could learn a lot of lessons from. I mean, I love just on a side note, a post that I saw yesterday, and it was basically North Carolina just needs to take the Prince symbol and put it in all bathrooms and be done with it. That's brilliant.
That would actually be a fantastic guerrilla art, nonviolent resistance kind of thing.
Exactly.
Just go around and you don't
just
even have to
print it out and just tape it up on them.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
But one of the things, what I was kind of going with before I thought of that sidetrack there, the way he handled it was just to make it normal.
Yeah.
He didn't celebrate it. He didn't call attention to it. He just did it. This was who he was, and this was who the people that he surrounded himself with sometimes were.
Yeah.
And I think we could learn a lot of lessons from that, because honestly, it's those of us who are having to be adults all the time, who or at least say that we are or pretend that we are, who get all caught up in this big kind of making an issue out of everything, and where the younger generations, like my kids in particular, their generation, it's just what things are. It's more of a reflection of what Prince was doing, back in the 80s. It's just life, and it's just people, and it's just how they are, and it's not new or different or wrong or right. It's just what it is.
And I think a lot of it has to do with people developing relationship with people of different backgrounds, different gender identities and sexualities. Like this idea that we are people emerges from our relationships with people and our exposure to them.
I would go as far as to say that's true for older generations, because
absolutely,
because we have these fixed ideas, and we have to have something in life confront us in a way that it changes those ideas. Whereas the younger generations don't even have those ideas. They don't need to have friends who are transgendered or anything else like that, because it's just cool with them. They don't care. Yeah. It's like whatever,
It's not even on their radar as an issue. I remember I was talking about this once with some teenagers at a church I was working at, and they looked at me and they go, "Don't we have anything better to talk about?" But it was just such a non-issue to them because it was not. But that's also, I don't also want to minimize the amount of violence that trans people experience, because trans men and trans women are, at significantly higher risk for violence against them, for depression and self-harm and all this kind of stuff, which is from this kind of society.
Sure, absolutely. And I think that actually just ties, I don't think that we're minimizing at all. It ties back to exactly what we're saying, is that our generation has issues with it, and they've been taught, and it's been ingrained into our heads. And it does take challenging and everything for that to happen. But the ideal way is what younger generations, how they treat it. The ideal way is how Prince handled it. That's not to minimize. I don't think we were doing that at all.
No. But
if anything, we were explaining it without going there.
And it's been interesting to see the amount of people who have come out against, states, companies,
artist after artist after artist
who've come out against North Carolina's HB2 bill, the so-called transgender bathroom bill or whatever, which I hate the weird label for that, because it's actually not really what it's about.
That's what it started with, and that's the way bills, happen.
But you've got everybody from Bruce Springsteen to PayPal to Donald Trump.
I know Donald Trump thinks HB2 is horrible.
So
If Donald's against it, you have and you're a Republican and you did it, you got problems.
I of all the things that have been unexpected to me, like Bernie's trip to the Vatican, all this other kind of stuff, I think this probably has surprised me most. Like, I didn't think there was anything left for Trump to surprise me. Holy cow! But this honestly surprised me. I heard it on the radio the other day, and I did a double take.
Yeah,
absolutely. I immediately started Googling it because I was like, surely they misspoke about this. But Trump, of all the Republican candidates, has surprisingly forward-thinking views on LGBT issues.
Well, I mean, here's the reality about Trump. Just 5 years ago, Trump was a moderate Democrat. So now he's going on these far crazy, way, way, way right Republican nutty ideas and ideologies. But the reality is, about 5 years ago, he was a moderate, maybe a conservative Democrat would be the best way to.
So in a way, I've been kind of heartened by I've been depressed by the bill was passed.
Right.
But I've been heartened by the number of people of faith, people of no faith, people whose only interest is financial, people involved in moral, ethical, who've kind of stood together in solidarity to say this isn't right. Like, discrimination is discrimination, no matter who it's against. And so I've been heartened by that. And I think it will. I'm hopeful that it will change. But I don't think it changes without the kind of people standing up and standing together.
Yeah.
I don't think it changes without people like Donald Trump standing against HB2, which is just a weird thing to say.
Yeah, I know, it really is. It's interesting. The Charlotte paper published a list of folks who are companies or famous people who came out for or against the bill.
Yeah.
And what's striking is that those for it tend to be either Republican political people or small Southern businesses.
Interesting.
Those who are against it tend to be the big, Apple, giant artist and that kind of thing. And for me, it's very heartening because it kind of does tell you that is the direction that the people and even the businesses want the United States to go, which makes me feel really positive about where we're going to end up. It's these battles in between that are horrific and shouldn't have to happen.
Well, and I keep coming back to this idea about safety and being a trans man or trans woman is one of the least safe identities one can have.
Absolutely.
The violence against particularly trans women, I believe, if I remember correctly, is really staggering.
Correct.
And really scary.
Yeah.
And as a society, I hope we're moving in this, and as Christian people, I hope we're moving in a direction in which we want to create places that are safe for trans men and trans women, and that be part of who we are ethically and morally and faithfully. Because if you think about it, there's a great exegetical connection to being trans, and some of the stories in the Gospels, but that's something we should cover on the Distilling the Gospel cast if we ever bring that back. So with that in mind, let's drop some music, come back and answer some questions.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. You're joining us for round three. Round three very recently, has become our AMA section, or Ask Me Anything. I guess it's an AUA, and Ask Us Anything.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's... But anyway, so...
which sounds very much like a round three at a bar kind of thing.
Yeah, it really does, actually. And so what we do is, just before we start recording the show, we go out to our personal pages and to the Moonshine Jesus page, ask for your questions, and then we go back and we pick our favorites. Frequently, we're not looking for the best questions as much as the questions that we feel like we could give a funny answer. No, that's not true. David's the funny guy here. I'm just here to read the questions.
Well, no, because like there are some questions that we could actually do entire podcasts.
Oh, yeah. We've already had those each time we've done this, but that's not where we're going to start this time. We're starting with the question from Dwayne G. Mason. What are your favorite Prince songs?
I need to go first because I know far fewer than you.
I don't know about that.
No, it's true. Like I was saying earlier, Prince was not somebody I grew up with for my religious reasons. So like my favorite Prince song is the one I know the best, which of course is Purple Rain. And I love that song. It's a great song.
Yeah.
So I guess part of my homework is going to be expanding my my range of Prince songs. Although
I would say start with Purple Rain. Start with the Purple Rain album.
I did notice that Amazon Prime has suddenly taken all of his songs like off the free version of Amazon Prime.
Yeah, go figure, huh? Yeah. Start with the Purple Rain in 1999 is what you should do for sure.
Okay.
But so for me, the favorite songs would be 1999. I love that. That's just because it was such a big anthem when I was in high school. When Doves Cry, obviously, was a great one. Let's Go Crazy is so much fun. That's a blast of a song. Raspberry Beret, I Would Die for You. I mean, there's so many fantastic. So yeah, I can't name one. I'm just going to be honest. I can't name one. Just not.
So well, I mean, he said Prince songs. You didn't have to name just one.
Oh, that's good. All right, so I named a bunch.
The other question is how we actually met and became friends. And so Mark and I knew each other online, as you know, lots of people online.
Right. Well, sort of. I mean, not as we know lots of people, because David was my favorite blogger.
And Mark was my favorite blogger.
And that's actually not a joke. Like
it's not at all.
Yeah, it's true. And so I got invited down to South Carolina a few years ago to be the minister for the Gay Pride Weekend.
Yep, that's right.
For the statewide Gay Pride Weekend.
I was living in South Carolina at the time, and I was about 45 minutes away, so I just popped over, and I was late, and I missed your address.
You missed the speech I gave.
It was great because, I was automatically a great friend. I just showed up for the beer at the bar.
Just for the beer at the bar. But that interesting thing is, the beer at the bar is where literally that cliche on the back of a cocktail napkin.
We are nothing if not cliche, Mark.
That's very true. On the back of a cocktail napkin, we planned out the show. Of course, it was named something different, but the 3-segment has always held up, and there's been parts that we planned that are still very much part of the show today.
We had so much fun at the bar just talking that we decided that's what we wanted the kind of the feel of the show to be, was us sitting in a bar and having a conversation. We record in the morning now, so we drink a whole lot less.
We just drink coffee now, but we will be having shows that we drink where we record in the afternoon. We will be sharing our favorite beers or something like that again. So that probably actually won't be long from now at all.
And the first thing that we ever collaborated on online was a short story and a sermon. You did a sermon, I did a short story on Noah's Ark too.
Yes. Oh, that's true. We did a collaboration, and it was a lot of fun, actually. I love the way that the two kind of knitted together and told. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So how about this one from Anna Marion Howell asking, what's your favorite text to preach on and what's your least favorite?
Dude, that's easy for me.
Oh, really? Because that'd be so hard for me.
My favorite text to preach on is the text on which I have already written the sermon. Like if the sermon's finished, it's my favorite.
I see what you did there. You're cheating the question.
My least favorite text to preach.
Ooh, I bet I know.
Is the text in which I still haven't written the sermon.
Very nice. I like your answers, man. I'm not even going to try to compete with those answers. Just no.
No, I love preaching on the parables. The parables are a lot of fun.
I like parables are my favorite things to preach on.
Mark,
that's not true. I like parables or any Old Testament story.
You also love preaching on the Gospel of John.
Yeah. Yes, my least favorite gospel. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
Welcome.
Okay, so let's wrap it up with this one. What would be, this is from Sarah Elizabeth, what would your superhero name be?
Oh, man. God. Man, that's the hardest one. That's the
Isn't
hardest
that
one
interesting? That's an interesting question, I think.
because I feel like if I say something too flighty, it will say something bad about me. But if I say something too deep, it will also say something bad about me. Like I'm paralyzed. Maybe that's it. Maybe
Captain Paralyzed. You can be Captain Paralyzed.
Captain Indecisive.
Captain Indecisive, and I'll be your trusty sidekick. Sits on his ass.
Oh man, that's that would be a really sad show to watch. Like,
It would be horrible.
Superhero movie.
That'd be horrible.
Because it'd be like, what do you want to do? And you'd be sitting on your ass, and I'd be like, I don't know, we could do this or we could do this, but maybe we should do this.
Maybe we
and
should
you're
do
like,
this.
oh,
Maybe we should do that.
We sit here. Well, I don't know if we should do that either.
The indecisive light is in the sky. What should we do? I vote for staying here. I'll vote for staying here, and your vote for I don't know. There's too many things we could do.
There's too many choices. Anyway. All right. Well, that was I like this segment a lot. This is much more fun than...
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We've run our mouths far enough, and what people are really ever tuning into the show for is the actual tunes. So let's give them what they came for, a little bit of Freddie Fry.
Go to heaven, your liver to hell. Your mind can't believe that they planned this so well. Moonshine and Jesus, yes, that is the way. They get us to give up our souls every day.